In today's video, I'll be addressing some of the hate mail we receive at the campaign for victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal, contaminated blood, and also some of the hateful and negative comments. G'day, my name's Charles McKenzie. I'm the president of Infected Blood Australia, and today, if I could have some moments of your time, I'd like to talk about the inevitability when you're running a campaign on the internet of receiving hate mail and things like that. And if you on our Instagram page today, I saw one that amused me, and it was from Andrew Fitness Coaching. There it is. I don't know if it comes up clearly, Andrew Fitness Coaching, but I'll read it out for you. And Andrew Fitness Coaching: imagine if social media didn't exist, you would have no platform to be an attention seeker. Well, Andrew Fitness Coaching, I can imagine a world where social media didn't exist. I've been campaigning since quite young, and I've been campaigning for 30 years, and there was no social media platform back then. And we were in the mainstream media back then demanding an investigation into Australia's deadliest medical scandal, contaminated blood. We were demanding a legal inquiry. We've demanded one for decades into how it could be that thousands of Australians ended up with the deadly virus hepatitis C after receiving a blood transfusion or blood product. This virus, hepatitis C, it's a leading reason for liver cancer today. Okay, and it's a leading reason for liver transplantation. It's a disaster. We've got people in our group right now who are struggling with cancer, and I've been told by some of them to say that they're actually dying of cancer. So, Andrew, we've been trying so hard, Andrew Fitness Coaching, to get help for them from the government, but the government's engaged in a cover-up. No doubt you'll throw some more rotten tomatoes at me saying that, but they are, Andrew, and it's provably true, and I think you're going to end up wearing egg on your face. But Andrew, what I'm offering is this. I said to you in reply, I said, look, I told you about the fact we've been in the mainstream media many years ago. We're fighting this huge battle against the Australian government, against the British government also, and against this massive vaccine and blood products company, CSL. They're a $138 billion company, okay? So we've been at this a long time, because when you take on a company that's worth $138 billion, they'll take you from here to the end of time before they'll give up, okay? Because these guys, they've actually murdered people. And they've murdered Australians en masse, including children. So they're not giving up, okay? And I get a lot of messages and have had a lot of messages. So I've been told I'll be murdered, particularly with the stuff about the children being knowingly infected. Okay, I've been pursuing that for many years because I was infected as a kid, and we've had friends in the group who are infected as children, like my mate Jay, who we lost Jay in 2017, and his mother's on our committee, Bertha, and Jay was the funniest, sweetest young man. And he evolved. He went from a young man who didn't maybe speak up as he gained confidence to becoming very vocal. He even ran for politics. What a wonderful guy! What a hero! What a lovely bloke, Jay Franklin. Greatly missed, actually, as are all the friends in our group who are no longer with us here. And we've had a number of deaths, obviously, over the years. And I think about them every day. And it's no word of a lie, you do, even if you don't want to. Sometimes you don't want to, sometimes you don't want to. Not because of anything bad, just because maybe sometimes it can make you sad about how they died. And I've thought about how they've died every day for years. Okay, so Andrew Fitness Coaching. What I suggest is this. I've asked you not to comment on our page again, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to get into one of those trolling scenarios. But I'm not going to shy away from what you say. And you'll find actually that with our group, especially with people who've had lost loved ones or people dying with cancer, that there's a lot of courage in their message. They're not afraid to say what's on their mind. And so what I actually say to you, Andrew, is this. Instead of actually commenting, because anyone can be tough behind a keyboard, before the internet, it's interesting. You said, imagine if social media didn't exist. Well, guess what, Andrew? Andrew Fitness Coaching. I can imagine that world, I've told you. And I used to go into meetings, and I used to actually have to talk publicly, and I'd be surrounded by people who really didn't like me, public health officials, that sort of thing. I've been called a liar. I've been told I'll be murdered. They've tried to put me in jail. Did you know that, Andrew? The Australian government and the Red Cross, a humanitarian agency, tried to have me jailed. They failed because I was innocent, and I haven't forgotten that to the people responsible. We're coming for you. So, Andrew, fitness coaching, would you like to debate me live? And what we'll say to the haters and the people telling me that they're going to kill me, or people telling me that I'm a liar or a conspiracy theorist, or that we should all die of AIDS or all die of Hep C or whatever else horrible stuff you've got coming our way. Would you like to come on, instead of hiding behind the keyboard, would you like to come and debate me live here on Infected Blood Australia? Now, the offer goes like this. I will never call you a name, and I'll always be respectful. We believe that manners make the man, okay? I'm a man, or make the woman. Okay, so we will be very respectful, and we do understand that not a lot of people know about Australia's deadliest medical scandal. Now, let's have a look at some other mail that we've been getting. I actually got this one has a few less expletives in it, so I'm going to use it as a message today so that I don't upset people and make people blush. I'll tell you what, you wouldn't want to be us sometimes. They want to demoralise us. That's what the messages are here for. Could be people working with this vaccine company, CSL. They're hiding the fact that they knowingly killed children in Australia, so they'd have as good incentive as any to come at us. It could be the Red Cross, who are covering up the fact that they knowingly infected thousands with contaminated blood transfusions. It could be them, or it could be just silly people out there, silly trolls on the internet. But here's one. Here we have this one. This is one is come in, and we'll share this for you. Of course, the email address is notactualemailloop@gmail.com, but don't worry, notactualemailloop@gmail.com. We know who you are, and we know about you and your feelings about indemnities. We received hate mail from this message when we were talking about how there shouldn't be indemnities for pharmaceutical companies. Okay, so and here we have it. So this person writes in, I have a question. I Googled most of the people in these testimonies. Now, if you go to infectedbloodaustralia.com, okay, I'll just take you now if you like, and you'll see that we have a page on our website called The Evidence They Didn't Want You to See. Okay, now if you go to that, I'll just get that up for you now. If you go to this page here, okay, The Evidence They Didn't Want You to See, and they really don't want you to see this, you'll see here that there are submissions from a Senate committee that held a pathetic investigation into hepatitis C in Australia's blood supply in 2004. Now, these victims marked their submissions as public. Well, guess what? The Senate of Australia decided to engage in cover-up because they didn't like the evidence that they saw. And you can see it for yourself by going to the evidence they didn't want you to see at infectedbloodaustralia.com. Here are the excerpts of what our victims have to say. Read them for yourself. They're absolutely horrifying. But this hater, not content with that, with the horrible stories, says, I Googled most of these testimonies and they either don't exist or they don't talk about their issues online. Why is that? I mean, if I'd been given infected blood, I'd be screaming murder and hacking at the health system. So why aren't they? And most of these entries are extremely old. Okay, well, we only recently put those excerpts up because the Senate of Australia took public submissions from contaminated blood victims. And the law is that public submissions get published, but not if you're a contaminated blood victim or Australian haemophiliac. So what the Senate did was they deliberately covered it up. And so they banned public submissions from being available online, unlike every other Senate inquiry's public submissions. So that's why you haven't seen these before. And as for these people, why aren't they on the internet? Oh, maybe because they're dead. Yeah. Maybe because they're dead, or maybe because they're very old or very sick, or just had enough, like our group. But yes, you're saying those people don't exist. Now, would you like to come and debate me? Would you like to come and debate their relatives? They're here in our group because they do exist, and actually we're going to get justice for them. Okay? Now, I'd also like to address, we've also had some people messaging from overseas. We've had some contaminated blood victims. Incredibly, we've actually had some contaminated blood victims from overseas. Now, by and large, we get on very well with contaminated blood victims from around the world, haemophiliacs or anyone who's been infected by reprehensible distribution of these tainted blood products in the 70s, the 80s and the 90s, okay? But we have had messages from one or two who haven't liked our campaign down here. Now, the reason for that is there's no financial assistance for Australians who are contaminated blood victims. There's financial assistance in Canada, There's financial assistance in Ireland, and it's quite substantial, by the way, because people have lost homes, jobs, and all the rest of it. People have lost family members. You can imagine it would be significant. And this money has been available for decades. There was contaminated blood is a global scandal. And so there's people in Canada, Ireland, New Zealand even, but in the UK, they're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and have been since 2003 because the British government, they're responsible for what exploded contaminated blood because they knew that their processes and they knew that these blood products that they helped create and distribute and create the blood policies for were contaminated from the outset. And in 1974, the British government decided to cover that up, to play down how deadly these or infectious these blood products were. And they came to Australia years later and they've killed 1,400 Australians and they've infected almost 2,000 Australians and they get no help whatsoever. The British government helped its own victims in 2003 and they've been on hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And disappointingly, one or two of them have become armchair generals who decide, let's have a look at the Australians campaign and let's tell them, stop talking about indemnities. Stop talking about vaccine makers. We don't approve of that. Oh, I'm sorry I offended your politics, but don't ever try and make us out to be anti-vaxxers or anything reckless. No, I'm vaccinated. I have great reservations about this COVID-19 injection. Sure, like many other Australians. Why? It's experimental. And also, one of the companies, Australia's biggest locally based vaccine manufacturer, was also indemnified for tainted blood. These guys were advertising in sexually explicit publications in the 1980s for blood donors during the HIV crisis, eh? During the HIV crisis, the Australian Red Cross, are advertising in sexually explicit publications, and that blood went to the sort of vaccine blood products company, CSL. $138 billion CSL. Here you are. There you go. They advertised here for blood donors. And then that blood went in to make products for haemophiliacs, killing 1,400 and infecting 2,000. And they they face no accountability, they've never, and haemophiliacs are completely broke. They've lost their homes, they've lost their jobs, they've lost everything because of these legal indemnities. And now this same company are legally indemnified for these COVID-19 injections that have already killed people here in Australia. Now, I am not saying that people shouldn't have their choice. There's been one or two silly people saying that all vaccines should be banned. No way. No way I don't support that. No one does. We're not crazy. We're good people down here. We're victims of the British lies. We're victims of a contaminated blood scandal that's been covered up for decades. You guys get help, we get no help. This is where they got their blood from. They were taking blood knowingly from high-risk donors. They were exploiting them. And why were they exploiting them? Because not only were they using the blood to create medicine for haemophiliacs, but they're using it to develop vaccines. These companies which are indemnified. So please, guys, honestly, understand that what we have to live under here as contaminated blood victims in Australia. No country treated its blood victims or its haemophiliacs worse than Australia. No one did. We need your help. We've got people dying in this group. I myself have this thing, a degenerative disease, a neurological disease, after having been a contaminated blood victim all my life since a kid. And before I go, I'd very much like to see our haemophiliacs and our contaminated blood families having justice and being acknowledged, actually. I think you've seen me being interviewing my mate Greg Ball. Greg Ball is the head of our haemophilia campaign. And if you want to see strength, and if you want to see a guy that has a lot to say and is ready to fight, he didn't ask to have his privacy taken away from him. He didn't ask to have to fight and have his name splashed over papers. He didn't want that. He's a hard-working, good bloke. Anyone that meets him will tell you that. We've had enough. We support him here, and we want justice for him and his family. He's had his brother affected as well. And we're going to get justice. The British did him wrong. They knew that their blood products were contaminated and they sent it down here for him and other Australians to have their lives ruined by. So we're going to get justice for Greg, and we're never going to apologise for what our victims have to say or what our haemophiliacs in Australia have to say, not ever. And we're never going to be demoralised or change what we've got to say. We're victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal. Children have been murdered. So please go to our bio and support the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Australian Red Cross CSL blood scandal. And I thank you so much, honestly, to you guys who are following us and being so kind. We need you as friends. I think you know that. Thank you so much.